from the strength of love. All that I am today, all that I bring today, I know that it's enough. Oh, I am born from the strength of love. I am breathing the strength of love. I am breathing the strength of love. Now in this holy air, every thought is a prayer. May we be lifted up. Oh, I am breathing the strength of love. I am blessing the strength of love. I am blessing the strength of love. I bring it forth today, sending it on its way out to the hills above. Oh, I am blessing the strength of love, blessing the strength of love.
The strength of love, breathing it, blessing it. Last Sunday, the talk was the Kingdom Keepers, and if you remember, it was based on a children's series about Disneyland and keeping the magic in Disney. And we correlated it with the kingdom within us, and that we have the power to be keepers of our kingdom. That our spiritual journey is about learning how to not allow the negativity in the world and around us to steal our magic, to steal our power. So today's talk, your thought is your life. And you've been hearing it in the prayer song, in Dixie's meditation. Some of you may have heard the story about the old Cherokee elder who was teaching the children about life. So he called them around him, gathered them, they all sat in front of them. And he said to them, there is a fight going on inside of me. There's this terrible battle between two wolves. One is evil. He is anger, envy, greed, sorrow, regret, self-pity, guilt, resentment, arrogance, false pride, lies, superiority, and ego. The other is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humbleness, kindness, thankfulness, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, faith. He said to the children, that same fight is going on inside of you too. That same fight is going on inside of everyone else too. And the children, eyes wide open, just looked at him. They were so quiet. And finally, one of them was brave enough to say, Grandfather, which wolf will win? And the grandfather said, the one you feed. Which wolf are you feeding? Jesus told us the kingdom of heaven is at hand. What does that mean? He never referred to the kingdom as a place out there, someplace we go after we die. He specifically located it within. Metaphysically, the kingdom of heaven, of God, is not a physical place. It is a dimension of consciousness within us, a place of absolute truth, a place of love, a place of absolute power within us. It's at hand, which means it's closer than our breath. It's part of us. It cannot be. The less I feed the evil wolf with thoughts of fear, negativity, limitations, the more I feed the good wolf with loving thoughts, with positive thoughts, with kind words and actions, the more I experience what Jesus referred to as the kingdom of heaven here on earth within me, within my mind, within my heart, within my being. The Greek word for heaven is uranos, and it means expansion. In the parables about the kingdom, if you ever look at them, Jesus uses as an examples rising bread, the growing mustard seeds, sowing seeds, examples of expansion. The kingdom is a state of a consciousness that as I raise my awareness of God, I expand, I grow. Our divine self is at hand. Kingdom is at hand. My divine self, my spiritual self is at hand. And it's waiting to express into this world, to express its power, its strength in this world. And the more I feed that good wolf inside of me, the more spirit, the more the divinity of me grows. And it becomes stronger. And it emerges out into the world, bringing harmony, bringing peace, which is exactly what we need. In unity, we call Jesus way shower. Because if you read his stories, the parables, it's all about giving us tools on how to feed that good wolf, isn't it? So in Matthew 5:39, one of the things he says is, I say to you, do not resist an evildoer. If anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn other to them also. We've heard that, right? Someone slaps you on the cheek, turn. And we've taken it a certain way, but what does it really mean? Metaphysically, what it really means to turn the other cheek is to turn from my human self to my divine self. To turn to that level of consciousness. Because when I'm in that divine self, when I'm in that oneness inside of me, I know that there is absolutely nothing in this world that can hurt that space, that can touch that space. So my question to you is, what keeps you from turning the other cheek? Think about it. Someone says something to me that offends me. Someone in the other car does something. I turn TV on and hear something on the news. So do I just react from that human side of myself? Or do I remember who I really am? Do I remember that within me is a power, is a neutrality, is a place of peace? And can I turn to that when something out here is upsetting me? There may be times when I feel like I've got a right to be upset. Then there, of course, we all have, right? I've got a right to be angry because of her, because of this, because of that. But whenever I think in negative, destructive ways, I'm feeding the evil wolf. There's a commandment. I remember Catholic school had to learn all these commandments. They didn't mean a thing to me. And it said, thou shalt not kill. And I went, well, of course I'm not going to kill anyone. But when you look at it metaphysically, what it's saying is every destructive thought I have is a killing thought. What's it killing? It's killing my peace, isn't it? So bitterness, hatred, anger, fear kills and destroys that peace of mind. It destroys my peace, my joy, my health. And it keeps me from what we're calling heaven at hand. Now, the person or the event may certainly be annoying, but it can only personally annoy me if I think it is. Something can only be upsetting and annoying because of how I'm seeing it, because of my thoughts. And if I find myself reacting in a negative way to what's happening, I remind myself to turn the other cheek. Stop. take a breath. Move within to that place that's neutral. Move within to that place we call the kingdom. Move to that part of me we call spirit or divine. And come from there. Because that's when I have guidance. That's where I have wisdom. That's where I respond rather than reacting. We have the power within us to stop ourselves and listen to this from being drawn into anyone else's level of consciousness. Why do I think because this person is thinking a certain way, I have to get pulled into that? I have more power than that. I have the power to turn the other cheek, to turn to my divine level, to the kingdom within, and meet every situation from there. Your thought is your life. That's not a man-made law. That is a divine law. It's powerful. So remember to feed that good wolf with humbleness, truthfulness, gratitude, compassion, kindness, love. And you will, too, be able to meet any situation from a powerful level of divinity that's within you, just as Jesus did. We know all these stories. In Mark 4:37-41, it's a story about Jesus has taught all day. He's tired. He gets on the boat with the disciples, and they're crossing the Sea of Galilee. He's asleep in the boat. We know this one, right? And what happens? A storm comes up. The wind's blowing. The waves are high. The disciples panic. They're afraid they're going to drown. They wake Jesus up and they say, "But don't you care if we drown?" And Jesus, you can just kind of see him like really tired, like opening his eyes and like kind of looking at him, then getting up and yawning and stretching and walking over to the side of the boat. Peace be still. The waves go down, it calms, the storm subsides. And then he looks at the disciples and what does he say? "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" Now these men walked with him. They'd seen the miracles that he did. But they still didn't have that trust. So what about you? What about you when the storms in your life appear? When the wind and the waves of negativity show up in our minds, and we create a storm in there, and it feels like we're going to drown, like we're going to sink? Have you been there? Are you there right now? Jesus gave us tools. He gave us tools, and that's why we call him way shower, we call him teacher. Because when we use these tools, it makes our life a lot easier. He told us, agree with your adversary quickly. The adversary he's talking about is not a person, it's not a situation, it's my thoughts about it. It's my negative thinking about it. He's telling us, settle with your adverse thinking quickly. Because if I don't, what happens? You go down that rabbit hole with it, don't you? There's that negative thought, then there's another one, and it gets bigger. Have you built those big mountains and storms in your mind when something isn't happening the way you think it should? In spite of appearances, in spite of injustice and disorder in my life, in the world as we're seeing it, or think we're seeing it, when a negative thought arises, like a storm inside my head, I have the power within me to calm the waves, to calm the wind, and to settle the storm. I can move to a state of love, of understanding, and the big one is non-resistance. Because as long as I'm resisting, I'm staying stuck in that negativity. If I don't dispose of negative thoughts right away, they actually start poisoning my life and my body. And we talk about that in other talks. The effect of stress, of worry, of fear on our bodies. Bring to mind that calm, that non-resistance, that peace. Because if I don't dispose of my negative thoughts right away, if they create poison within me, then I've given my power away, haven't I? Your thoughts are your life. Hear that. We're in Tuesday morning class, we're working with Discover the Power Within, and that was the title of a chapter. And everyone went, whoa, your thoughts are your life. So, if you're carrying a person or some situation on your back in hurt and anger, and you've been doing it over a period of time, this is going to have a tremendous cost, not only to your peace of mind, but also to your health. And there's another story, a lot of you have probably heard it, and it's about two monks who are walking on foot, they're traveling. And they come to a river, and the river's got a real strong current. And so they're getting ready to cross, and as they do, there's a woman trying to cross. And she looks over to them, and she asks for help. Now, these two monks are restricted from making any contact from women. That's part of their practice. So the younger, newer monk in the order doesn't even acknowledge her. He steps in and crosses the river. The more seasoned monk walks over to her, puts her on his back, and crosses the river. When he gets on the other side, he puts her down. She says, thank you. She goes one way. He joins his friend monk, and they go another. And they're walking a half hour, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. And finally, the younger monk goes, I can't stand it anymore. You know we're supposed to avoid contact with women, and you picked that woman up and you carried her across the river. And the seasoned monk looked at him and said, yes, and I put her down as soon as I got across the river. Why are you still carrying her? Why are you still carrying her? Think about this. Who and what are you still carrying on your back? From years ago? Months ago? Last week? Just before you came to church? A minute ago? You know, we can't always control what is happening around us, can we? But we can control how we think about it. And what we think about it is our life in that moment. Do you hear that? Do you really get that? I can make my choice minute by minute by minute as to what my life is going to look like just by my thoughts. We have some cards you're going to get today. And it has a prayer for protection on this. We say this every Sunday. And on the other side, because if you look around, we know a lot of people are vacationing and a lot of people are driving in cars, we also have on it an automobile blessing. So, I'm straying a little bit here. But usually when someone's going on a trip, what's the common thing we say? Say it louder. Okay, I heard. Be careful. Why would you even put that thought out there? Why won't you affirm, you're going to have a great trip, enjoy? And so we've put this automobile blessing on here so you can, with all this traveling this summer, so you can take it with you, and it'll be passed out right after the offertory. We'll have someone passing that out. Right, Heidi? Yeah. Okay. Just making sure. So this week, notice, observe when you're in a storm. When the wind and waves are blowing inside your head and they're tossing you about, notice that and say, I can turn the other cheek. I can agree with my adversary quickly. I have the power to do this within me. I have the power to feed the good wolf and starve the bad wolf. Because my thoughts are my life. God bless you.